But let's talk about colored vinyl and multiple variants.
Okay.
I remember, and I do want to get into when we talk about like React and Samo and all our history. But when I used to do a record label for those who don't know called React, and I actually did 3 record labels in my life.
What were the other ones?
I did one for 4 releases called Anchor.
Okay, was this at the same time as React or
Before React?
Oh, okay.
I did it. I was in this band where I was doing quite a bit of touring, and it started off. I put out a record for a band called Stay Gold, one for a band called What Feeds the Fire, one for a band called The Answer, and one for a band called Allegiance. And it was 4 records, and I had a lot more planned. And thank God, all of those releases got sniped by a bigger record label. Thank God. At the time, I was pissed, but it's like I was in no position in my life to be doing a record label.
Right.
I was young. I was touring with my band a lot. I'd started my career at the time, what went on to be my main career for many years. I was ultra busy, and I started this record label. So this is when I was working with labels, and they'd call you, the owner would call you, and it was so cool. I started that. Then I did React many years later, which was like a much bigger thing. And then after React, I did 2 releases. I had a label called UXO, and it was only there to support React because I had transitioned React over to Evan Wyvel from Mindset.
Oh yeah, I know him.
And he would have some releases that he didn't want to do, and I'd be like, I'll do that record just to support that band. Or I did 2 releases, one for something that we wanted to have on React, or that I had requested he put on React and he turned down. So I ended up putting out myself. And then one for a band that he wanted to put out, but it was a big expense because they were a European band. They weren't going to do a lot.
I see.
They're older people. And so I said, I'll split it because I really like the band. So I did 3 record labels, but 1 main record label. When I think of colored vinyl, the griping that people would have, it's like,
What griping?
well, the griping that would get is like, oh, like you put out like 1,000 pieces of vinyl and there's 3 colors plus black. It's like, you're just trying to get me to buy multiple copies. It's like, well, yeah. Like,
I wondered how you were about to answer that question.
yeah, yes. Like,
Right.
Why are you saying it like, you just Columboed me and like you found
Right.
out something. It's like, that's the point, because by pressing more copies, I can sell each copy for less. That means there's a more potential that if we do this, I can give the band more copies for them to sell on tour. Nobody's making you buy those copies. It also means that if you want to buy 1 copy, that means there's other color copies for other people to buy. And there's people are interested, there's collectors. It's a niche market, and it's made for people who are interested in being involved in record collecting or supporting a band to that level. So React used to do usually just 1 press of a record, and we'd have 3 colors and then black. And if we did a second press, it would be like 1 color and then black. And I've kept that going with bands that I've done, just myself, my own bands. I love color vinyl. I always thought it was cool. I grew up collecting like Revelation records and early Victory records and and then all the Discord stuff, which is mostly on black vinyl. But like collecting like different anomalies on a cover and different here's this different record label this was pressed on. Sometimes I'd have like 30 copies of the same record because I thought it was cool. And
you said 30.
Yeah, like Bad Brain records,
Wow.
like early Bad Brains records, you would have just like so many stuff because it would be pressed by like multiple different, before the EU, it would be pressed by multiple different countries in Europe.
Cool.
And then there'd be the reissues with all the different colors and all of that. So I love color vinyl. What's interesting now though is it seemed to go from that record label's pressing too much color vinyl to now that's the expectation. There's like a bazillion different variants.
Yeah, and it's funny again to think about how punk and hardcore really sort of set the stage for that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can draw a straight line towards that or not, but it doesn't seem to be a coincidence, because I think that the existence of variants as, let's say, a record label strategy is now totally entrenched.
Yeah.
And I think it's great, actually. In the last 10 years, I think it's been more and more commonplace. Aside from having multiple copies for collectors to buy, the concept also gives other parts of that ecosystem specific opportunities. So you can have a color for a web store, so then people can go and support that record label directly.
Yeah.
There could be a tour variant. There could be a retail variant that you can only get at Newbury Comics or something like that. So it's a smart strategy.
Yeah.
And at a certain point over the pandemic, we had to limit the number of variants because there's a lot to jog with, right? When you have 5 different variants, and that means 5 different stickers, so that in packaging and everything else, there's a lot of components to put together. And we've now gotten rid of that limitation. And so it's not, I saw a project in our system the other day with 10 variants, and I thought, wow, that's a lot. But it didn't seem to be, it's not something I would ever consider really putting a limit on. I could eat my words, I guess, for some reason in the next couple of years when someone clips me. But yeah, I think it's something to be encouraged because it does create those opportunities for different parts of, different parts of that ecosystem.
Yeah. I also love how it can get you to deal with the packaging different. If you get a record on a certain color and it plays off a different element of the packaging, or if they're doing a different press and they do something different with the packaging. I'm a total nerd for that. I love stuff like that. And for me, it's never oh, this is too much. It's just, well, how deep down the rabbit hole do you want to go? It's up to the consumer. And music is it's the music, it's the sound, it's the recording quality, it's the lyrics, it's the packaging. There's so many dimensions to music. I think it's a cool thing, but I also understand why people might be well, they're just doing this to get me to buy something. Well, yeah, because there's a whole economy that goes along with this. It's up to the consumer how far they want to go. But I don't think I'd rather see people thrive in the music community and find out different ways of doing that than limit it, because it's not anyone's getting hurt.
I agree. Yeah. It doesn't have a negative impact on anyone, as you say, because there will be people who want 30 copies of, that Bad Brains LP, right? So you are gas in the tank for that argument. Yeah, and so I think that it does. So we have a combination of automatic and manual presses. The manual presses are the ones that enable you to make different types of effects, right? Because then you can manually manipulate the puck, right? So for us, it sort of plays into a strength. So I want there to be a big proliferation of variants out there because I feel like it really kind of enables us to push on that, And I think that it can also help on the major label side. I think it can help artist careers by having multiple variants because it can help with chart position, things like that. Because if you buy 2 variants, that's 2 units sold from the same buyer.
Right.
So there's just lots of utility for it on the indie side and on the major side.
It's such a even that stuff that you're talking about, and I've heard it discussed different ways. It's it's a way of rigging the system. It's this kind of Machiavellian, evil thing. It's well, these are just the way that artists.
But it's also what people want, right?
Yeah.
So it's not really manipulating dark desires. I think it's
totally, man.
It's something people want to collect.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, people want to make a living doing their art, and they want their art to be heard and consumed, and people engage with it. And I think. Not by any means, but I like a lot of the creative ways that the music industry has changed so that people stay engaged with records for longer periods of time. I think it's super compelling.
Yeah. It's up to our industry, the vinyl pressing industry, to push things further into the collector's kind of market.
Yeah.
It's not a tool for DJs exclusively like it might have been, in the 90s, in addition to, punk and hardcore and indie rock and stuff like that. It's clearly a collector's market. Like I said, 50% of people who bought a record last year, in the broader public own a turntable. So it's like it's an artwork.